Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Time for the big interview. Sean Casey grew up in Upper St. Clair, Wisconsin, the son of Joan and Jim Casey. He played collegiately at the University of Richmond. You'll hear in a minute the only school to offer him a chance to play baseball. Pretty good move by the Spiders. He won a Triple Crown in college, wound up a second-round pick by the Cleveland Indians in 1996. His first full year came in 1999 after a trade to Cincinnati. Went to the All-Star game, one of three of those in his career. Played nearly 14 years. In 2006, Sean Casey played in the World Series for the Detroit Tigers. He's a member of the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame and is affectionately known all over the galaxy as the Mayor. Please welcome one of our all-time favorites, Sean Casey. How are you this morning, brother? How's life treating you?
What's up, Tommy? How you doing, man? How's everything? I want to correct one thing. I'm not from Wisconsin. It's Upper St. Clair, Pennsylvania.
I thought I said Pennsylvania.
No, but you said Wisconsin. But I'll take Wisconsin. They're
no,
tough people.
No. I'm getting it right. It's Pennsylvania. I knew that. It's right outside of Pittsburgh. I got friends of mine that are from that big money neighborhood you grew up in out there in Upper St. Clair.
Yeah, right.
Talk about growing up, Case. When you were growing up as a kid, I mean, your mom and dad, they were involved in every single thing you did. And what an upbringing, right? I mean, nothing's perfect in the world, but what an upbringing.
Yeah. Oh, man, Tom, there's not a day that goes by that I still don't talk to my mom. I talk to my mom every day, and my dad, too. I'm the most blessed man in the world, the most fortunate person, the gratitude that I have for my upbringing and the house I grew up in and my family. I grew up with my older sister, Beth, and we just grew up in a good house. My dad was a hardworking guy, was a chemical salesman. And, it just traveled a lot. And like I said, my mom was around a lot and I'm very grateful for the house I grew up in, Tom. My dad was a hardworking guy, kind of, instilled that in me that, you got to put in the work and if you want to get anywhere in life, and just so many great lessons from that house with my family.
One of the things, Sean, I think that stands out more than anything, and for those of us, and I consider being blessed, honestly, and I don't say this with any reluctance whatsoever, what an honor and a pleasure and a blessing it is to get to know you through all these many, many years. And you treat people the way everybody wants to be treated. Where did you see that as a kid? Because I look, everybody has good moods and bad moods, but I don't think I've ever seen you in a bad mood. And it doesn't matter whether it's the King of Kings or whether it's a guy who's showing up and working 50 hours a week to clean up the stands in the ballpark every night. Everybody feels like they're your friend because you treat them that way. Where'd that come from?
You know what? My dad was always big on, people like to be recognized, and, the sweetest sound anyone can hear is their name. And I just always felt like, that, I think my dad and my mom just instilling me like, hey, treat people the way you want to be treated. Everyone's the same. I think a big thing is there's 7 billion people in the world. No one's got, everyone's got unique handprints, footprints. Nobody's got the same smile. So I was just kind of brought up that everyone's unique, everyone's special, and all work is, there's dignity in all work. My dad was big on that. Like, hey, listen, everyone that goes out and does their business, they show up to do their work, to go home, support their family or whatever. So I don't know. I was just always raised that, like, treat people the way you want to be treated. It's not hard. Be kind, and I don't know. I'm grateful for that too, because, moving up the ladder and becoming a big league ball player, there is temptation at times to think that you're better than other people because you're on TV or you can hit a baseball. Like, that is such BS, and it's just not true. And I was grateful that coming into that life, I had the boundaries and the values to know the difference.
When you're playing in high school, obviously, like everybody who makes it to the big leagues, you're a big high school star. Yet, and I've often felt like kids from the Midwest and you being from Pennsylvania frequently get overlooked in favor of guys like California or Texas or Florida, where they're playing a lot more games and so forth. I'm not going to say you and your dad and your mom were begging schools to get you into school, but you didn't have people beating down the door to get Sean Casey to come to play college baseball for him, right?
We were basically begging. Yeah, it's Tommy. Man, it's like one of those things, and like for me, my story kind of goes back to my freshman year in high school. Another lesson from my dad. Like I didn't really. I was the best player until about 14. 11, 12, 13. 14 for whatever it was. Guys started hitting puberty before I did. I was a young 14. I graduated high school when I was 17. So guys started passing me that freshman year. And my freshman year, I didn't play much for the high school team. And I remember going home one day to my dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, do me a favor. If you go talk to the coach real quick, he doesn't know how good I've been these past few years, hitting bombs at 12-year-old Little League. I don't know what the heck he's doing, but I was wondering if you can go talk to him really quick and just let him know that I'm better than the kid that's playing ahead of me." And my dad, it was just so great looking back, especially being a father of 4 kids, looking back, certain conversations that you have along the way. And Tom, being a dad that, could steer you in this direction or that direction. And my dad just said something to me that was great. He's like, "Listen," he goes, "I'm not going to go talk to that coach." He's like, "Because you're obviously not glaringly better than the other kid. Because if you were, you would play." And I was like, so he's like, "I'm not going to go talk to that coach, but there is a batting cage that just opened up in the town next to us." And he's like, he's like, "You need to start taking some accountability for who you are as a player. You need to start creating new habits for being the player that you want to become. So instead of me going to talk to the coach, why don't you go start talking to that batting cage there and start taking some swings every day and start getting better so that next year when you show up, you'll be glaringly better than that kid and you'll start for JV." And that was the lesson for me. Without that conversation, Tom, I don't even know if we're having this conversation, because that started me on the journey of, oh, wow, when you start to hit every day and you start to put the work in, those marginal gains of make you become such a better player. Your craft, you start to develop the skill, and all of a sudden you start to become a better player. So that was the beginning of my journey. And as I got better, it was kind of funny. I started JV my sophomore year, then I started varsity my senior year. Was one of the best players in the area again. But you know me, Tom. I mean, gosh, I wasn't the flashiest guy out there. I wasn't the sexiest runner. I think when people come out to see me play, they'd be like, "Oh, that guy can't run. He can't do this, can't do that." But I could hit, and I've developed that. I developed that skill, and I worked on other things, but that hit skill I always had. And in my senior year, I had no college scholarship offers, not Division 1, 2, or 3. It was so frustrating because I was like, my dad always said, "Hey, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. One day you're going to get an opportunity. It would be a shame if you're not prepared." So I kind of always took that in my mind when I was hitting. And my senior year, I had no offers, and I remember my dad coming to me and he's like, "Listen, instead of sitting here telling me you have no offers, what are you going to do about it?" He's like, "Because you have to learn one lesson in life, Sean. No one's coming to help you. No one's here to really help you out. You got to help yourself. And you got to sometimes go out and market yourself." So what I did was, he's like, "Why don't you write 30 letters to 30 different schools you want to go to?" So I did. I sat down and wrote Clemson, Penn State, Marietta, College of Worcester, John Carroll. I mean, I was Division 3, Division 1. I was taking all takers were in my letters, Tommy. I was 30 letters. Whoever wants to take Sean Casey, let's go. And the last when I was sending out these letters, my dad came upstairs with a brochure, because back then there was no social media. It was like, "Hey, the Richmond Spiders gave you a brochure last year at the Keystone State games. Why don't you send them a letter too?" So the last letter I wrote was University of Richmond. I sent it out. And, bro, all those swings, added up to my senior year having a great year. In this one game, I went 4 for 4 with 8 RBIs and 4 doubles. My coach, Jerry Malarkey, came up to me and said, "Hey, Case, you're having a great game. How many hits you have?" 4 hits. "How many doubles?" 4 doubles, 8 ribbies. He's like, "That's great, man." He goes, "You see the guy behind the backstop right there? That's Coach Mark McQueen. He's the assistant coach at University of Richmond. Drove 6 hours to come see you play." And it was incredible. After the game, Coach McQueen said, "I'm going to call you tomorrow. Go home and talk to Coach Atkins, the head coach." And they offered me a $1,000 scholarship to go to University of Richmond. That's how I got there. And it's just incredible. It's 2 incredible lessons. You got to put the work in, and no one's coming to help you. You got to help yourself.
So you go to Richmond and you win the college equivalent of the Triple Crown. I mean, you're the guy, and all of a sudden, you're known as one of the best players in the country. You're a second-round pick by the Cleveland Indians, right down the road from where you grew up in Pittsburgh. You get traded to Cincinnati. and in 1999. And you're in a big league uniform. You're at a big league ballpark. It's, what, a day before the season opener? And what happened?
It's 3 days into
3 days.
It's the third game of the year. Yeah, third game of the year. Jack McKeon had come up to me. I'd just been traded for Dave Burba 3 days earlier. So, Jack McKeon was like, hey, listen, tomorrow I'm going to start playing you every day. You're going to get a start and you're going to start getting in the lineup, because the first 3 games he kind of was letting me get my feet wet, being in Cincinnati and being in the big leagues, meeting the guys and stuff. And we were in batting practice, and Pokey Reese was hitting in the cages, and Barry Larkins at short, Damian Jackson's at second base, and Damian Jackson's like, hey, Case, you want to take some balls live off the bat? And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. What does that entail? He's like, well, as soon as the ball's hit, we're going to turn it and we're going to play it live. So Pokey hits a ground ball to Lark. Lark turns it to Damian Jackson. Damian Jackson turns to me. I catch it, and I throw it back to the bucket where there's usually a pitcher working the bucket that takes the balls for batting practice. So I throw the ball back to the bucket, and as I did that, Pokey had already hit another ball. He hits it to Lark. Lark throws it to Damian. Damian throws it to me. I'm not looking. I'm looking straight. And the ironic thing is I have this huge net in front of me. And then, I didn't really even hear anything. I just remember this ball hitting me as hard as it could right in the orbital bone. And I just went down. I knew I was in trouble. My eye swelled up so fast. Turns out I had a big time orbital fracture. I was taken to the hospital. And, looking back, I think my career was really in jeopardy. I'm just so grateful, that I had the surgery I did, and Dr. Kremchek was so great during that. And, I was able to come back from it. But that was a scary thing being there in Cincinnati and getting hit in the eye third day as a Red.
You think about that for a second, and you just said, you're worried about your career. I'm sure as you're down there on the ground and they're telling you got to go into surgery, yet you come back. I mean, in virtually almost no time at all. I think a lot of times, a lot of us are like, oh man, how in the world is that guy not playing? It's this or this or this or this. I mean, you've got a fractured orbital bone around your eye. Your right eye, which for a left-handed batter is the eye you're looking right out at the pitcher, right? And all of a sudden, you were back in what? How long?
6 weeks. 6 weeks,
yeah,
I think.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Incredible. It was incredible. I don't know if I was ready to come back, Tom, but I was ready to get back to the big leagues. I had a 4-hour surgery because I had double vision in my eye, and Dr. Bill Harrison, who was out in California, sent me these drops because I damaged my iris. So the sun was so bright, when I had that injury. So these drops helped me out, everything. But I came back 6 weeks later. I went down into rehab. I went 6 for 12. Jim Bowden calls me. He's like, "You ready?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'm ready." Kidding me? I've been ready. I've been ready my whole life. So I go up there, Tommy. We go to Montreal. We're facing Javier Vasquez. Bam! I drop a 3 for 4, couple doubles. I think I might have even gone deep. 3 for 4. I'm like, oh, I'm back. And then this is when the game humbles you, and life will humble you, but the game of baseball will humble you at times. I proceed to go 0 for my next 35. And I just remember thinking, man, it was just such a struggle. They sent me down to AAA, and I'd never been so grateful to get sent down, because I was like, okay, I got to get my swing together. I got to get my rhythm back, my timing. And one thing I learned about the game of baseball, man, it is a tough game. And if you're not 100% ready to go, and you're not exactly where you need to be, it'll eat you up fast.
That 99 team, despite the fact that you guys did not advance on to the playoffs and all that kind of thing, became truly one of the all-time fan favorite teams in the history of the Cincinnati Reds franchise. You guys make the deep run, and you play great, and there's a really nice nucleus coming up. All of a sudden, the offseason, you trade for Ken Griffey Jr., and the whole world is saying, look out for the Cincinnati Reds. At the time, he's the best player in the game. But it never panned out. And it's not to sit here and say it's to blame anybody, because certainly that's not the case. I mean, injuries are going to happen. Yeah. But isn't it amazing when you think back and wherever you were when you heard the team acquired Ken Griffey Jr. and the things you thought were going to happen, and they just never happened? Life's funny that way, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, life can take can pivot on you really quick. I think the biggest thing was, we got Ken Griffey Jr. At the time, Jr. was Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael of baseball. He was the best player in the game. I think he had just hit 456 home runs, had 140 RBIs, ridiculous numbers. He was one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So when we got Jr., we were thinking, man, we got a great team here. We just won 96 games in 99. We're getting the best player on the planet, and it just never really gelled. I don't think it was so much Junior as it was our pitching. I just don't think we didn't do a good job in the front office of putting the money into the team the way we should have. I think as far as the pitching goes, because you can have Mike Trout, even Shohei Ohtani, if you don't have the pitching behind them, you ain't winning baseball games. So you can have Ken Griffey Jr. and the best players in the world, but if you don't have a nucleus of guys on the bump that can pitch, you're not going to win in this league. And I think that was a big part of it.
I remember Joe Morgan, the late Joe Morgan, saying to me one time when we were having a conversation that one of the easy is not the right word. It's easier to be a great player on a bad team than it is to be a great player on a really good team. You agree with that?
So Joe was saying it's
Joe is saying that when the expectations are high and you've got this team that everybody thinks is going to be really, really good, and all the pressure that comes along with that it's harder to be a great player. I may have misspoke this. It's harder to be a great player on a good team than it is to be a great player on a bad team. You agree with that?
I can see what he's saying there, yeah, because I think that when you're on a great team, I think expectations are a lot higher, right? And I think you even go back to those Big Red Machine teams, and it's tough to pick out who the best player was when you got Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Tony Perez and Joe Morgan. I mean, obviously Joe was NL MVP and one of the best players out there. But I think the expectations as a great player when you're on a great team, I think they do go up. I think it is harder at times because I think when you're on not a great team and you're a great player, I don't know, like sometimes people aren't paying as much attention. But when you're on a great team and you're a great player, even though there's a bunch of great players, the expectations for you to be one of the best are higher. So I agree with that.
You go through the next 9 seasons, you play in Cincinnati, you become one of the great players in the history of the franchise, baseball's oldest franchise. Then you get a chance to play for your hometown team in Pittsburgh. Now, this is another interesting situation for a player. Barry Larkin did it his whole career. But playing for your hometown team, what was that like?
Well, it's funny. Growing up in Pittsburgh, all I wanted to do was play for the Pirates just because – I grew up watching my teams were really like, Bonds and Bonilla and Van Slyke and Jay Bell and all those teams, Doug Drabeck. So I was, my dream was to play for the Pirates. So when I did in 2006, I was really excited. But I also, it was fun it's fun to wear that uniform, but it's not fun when your tail kicked in every night when you're not really on a great team. So, for me, it was like it was my 9th year in the big leagues. I really wanted to have a chance to go to the postseason at that point. I think leaving Cincinnati was definitely a tough thing for me when it first happened. But looking back, I really believe God's got a plan for all of it. So it turned out to be the 3 of the best years of my life, going to the World Series that year in 06. But, yeah, playing for the Pirates was a dream come true. And but I also think at that stage of my career, I really wanted to play for a winner.
I called that series when you were playing in 2006, back in the League Championship Series for Fox and playing for the Tigers. The Tigers have had a lot of lean years over the last 20, 25, 30 years. They've had some good teams periodically, including the one you played on in 06. I got to tell you, and I'm curious if you agree, those are some of the best fans in the world when they've got a good team, the Detroit Tigers. That is a fun place to go and watch baseball when they're good. Did you feel that way?
Incredible, Tom. I'll tell you one story. The fans that came out, that city is, they are a blue-collar city. And we were a blue-collar team with a blue-collar manager in Jim Leland. I mean, we kind of took on to his personality. But, I remember in the division series, I hit a ball off Randy Johnson that was a couple guys on. It was a big part of the game. I doubled off Johnson in the gap, and I get to second base. Joe Torre's coming out to take out Randy Johnson. It's absolute pandemonium because we realized, man, we're about to beat the Yankees. places on their feet. You can't see a fan because there's so many orange towels waving. It's a sea of orange towels. The music is playing so loud. And I remember this so vividly, looking back at the crowd and just thinking, what a fan base, what a city. Like, this is incredible. The energy that those fans brought in that summer of 06, I mean, will go down in history as some of the greatest fans, ever in the game. And like I said, those are some of the greatest memories I have. And one of the biggest reasons is because that city was so electric and those fans backed us so much.
It's funny for guys that get a chance to play in the postseason year after year after year, and guys like Derek Jeter or Mariano Rivera on the mound, and how they elevate their game even to another level when they get on that big stage. And then there are some guys, and look, it's not sitting here picking on anybody, but they might only get a chance or two, and when they get in there, just things don't go the way they hoped for. And they're remembered as a guy who couldn't get it done in the postseason. Your numbers in the postseason are staggering. .410 batting average. You go in 12 games with both Detroit and Boston. You drive in 9 runs in the 12 games. I'm curious, Sean, when you had that chance, finally, after a long time of not having that chance to get on the big stage, was there anything different in your mind as you showed up at the ballpark or when you walked to the plate in situations like that was different in the playoffs than it may have been during the regular season?
Well, obviously, Tom, being around, postseason baseball, especially the World Series, you can feel it in the air, and you walk out there in batting practice for game one and you're like, wow, does this feel different? This feels so different. The adrenaline's a little more, the excitement's a little more in the air. One thing that I knew was that I knew how I was very grateful to be there because it was my 9th year in the big leagues and I'd really never played in the postseason besides that one game in 1999 where we lost to the Mets with the Reds. So I'd never really experienced that. So I knew how special it was and I knew how hard it was to be there. And I just remember telling myself, I am going to cherish every moment I have here. I am going to be all gas, no break. I'm coming right for it. If I go down, I'm going down swinging and I'm coming out hard. And I just remember thinking I'm ready for this. Like all my whole career, I'm ready. I've learned the process of an at-bat. I've learned the process of taking care of being able to play in front of a ton of fans and pressure and all that stuff. And all that experience that I had over those 9 years helped me so much in that postseason to not let it get so big and just realize, no, this is special. Lean into the moment, get into the present moment. We'll go one pitch at a time. And it just really worked out for me. Incredible to look back, hitting 2 homers in the World Series. And I remember rounding the bases on my first one thinking, holy crap, I just homered in the World Series. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, I'm that kid, that 14-year-old kid that couldn't play on the freshman team, all those swings, trying to find a college that wants me. And next thing you know, in 2006, I'm literally rounding the bases in St. Louis after homing for the Detroit Tigers in the World Series. Like, it still gives me chills to this day, 16 years later.
You said a minute ago, and I wanted to jump in there when you said you had a double off Randy Johnson. Now, I had a chance to watch Randy Johnson. He was at the tail end there, so I'm going to beat you up for getting a double on Johnson. He was washed up by then anyway. But back in the heyday, you were in a game where he struck out 20 batters. I had the privilege of watching that guy every 5 days when he was at the top of his game. Cy Young, every single year. For a left-handed batter, can you put into words, and we all remember the John Kruk thing in the All-Star game, but as a left-handed batter, can you put into words what it was like to face Randy Johnson?
It was scary. It was really scary. It was the most uncomfortable at-bat. Those at-bats that I had against Randy Johnson were probably the most uncomfortable at-bats, especially when he was in Arizona. I remember the first time facing him, it was just – he's 6'11". I'm a lefty in there against him. He's throwing behind me. He's got that 3-quarter release, and he's throwing 100, and then he's throwing like a 92, 93 mile-an-hour slider down and away. It just – I had never seen anything like it in my life when I first faced him. And it was a great experience for me, though, because it really taught me perspective. I remember the first day I faced him, he dominated me. I think I was 0 for 4 with two strikeouts. And I remember thinking to myself, I was so excited it was Randy Johnson and intimidated. And after facing him, I thought to myself, if I have that same thought process for every pitcher I face in the big leagues, I'm going to be out of here soon. So it was like the Randy Johnson at bat where I was like, this is so uncomfortable, and he's such a large human. But if I continue to think that, these guys are better than me, then it's going to be in trouble. And I started to visualize guys from that point on. I said, as soon as they release the ball, it's a pitching machine. And when it comes in, I'm going to hammer it, So thank you, Randy, for helping me change my mentality, because he was so nasty that I'm like, I got to be better in my own thinking against some of these guys that are unbelievable.
He was, when you at the MLB Network, when you guys replay some games and you watch some games that he pitched, and I mean, I was there for a ton of them, but I look at him now, and it's mind-boggling to me what a phenomenal pitcher he was. I want to move on now, a couple other things. Let's talk about baseball today. Just recently, they decide to make some rule changes in the game, multiple rule changes in the game. How do you feel about those changes?
I love them. I talked to Theo. Theo Epstein was part of, that group that put those together, and I was talking to him the other night, and they've done the research, especially that pitch clock down in the minor leagues. They've done the numbers. I mean, it almost cuts off 25, 30 minutes of the game. I think the game was 244 or 248 was the average minor league game when they had the pitch clock. So I kind of like that because it speeds, it speeds the game up. It makes it a little faster, and guys will have to get used to it. I'm sure that'll be an adjustment guys will have to make, but they will make that adjustment. The other, getting rid of the shift, Tom. Like I kind of like that. I don't know, man. Like you got two right fielders, you got all these guys shifted to the one side, and I know guys say, "Well, just hit it the other way." It's not that. First off, it's not that easy just to hit it the other way, and there are certain guys that can make you shift back. But I do think, I do think it's like almost like the NFL with receivers on the line, whatever. Of having, you can't have so many guys on a certain side or whatever. Like there's rules in every sport for that stuff. So I kind of like that. The fielders need to be on each side of second base. Two fielders on each side of second base when the pitch is thrown. I personally like that. And the other one was they made the bag 18 inches instead of 15 inches. Being a guy that broke my back one time at first base at a play when I was with the Pirates because it was so tight over there, I kind of like that extra 3 inches. I think it makes the game a little better as far as stolen bases goes, and guys, taking a shot because it's a little closer. So I like the rules that they did. What do you think, Tom?
Look, I really think, and Sean, you're making a living at it. I'm not anymore of broadcasting baseball games. Hopefully, we'll get a chance one of these days again. But if not. But
you will be.
We'll see. But the game right now breaks my heart in so many ways because you were playing. Going back to when I was announcing the Cubs games is when you first came up to the big leagues, and I just remember, those average time of games like you're talking about. It was 2:35, it was 2:40, it was 2:27, it was 2:17. You had a lot of those games, even 5-4, 6-5, 7-5 games. We're going 2:20, 2:30, and now, Sean, I look at, I tell the story all the time about my son a couple of years ago. I asked him, we're riding in the car, and I'm bringing him back from practice one night from basketball workout, and the World Series was going on, and Game 7 was that night. And I asked him, and I said, hey, you going to watch Game 7 tonight? And he looks at me, he says, Dad, he says, the game doesn't start until 8:30, and the game's going to be 3.5 hours long. I got school tomorrow. I can't stay up that late to watch the end, so what's the point? And I think that's really been the norm now in baseball, and I think it's hurting the game. They have to do something to get it moving. Don't you think?
Yeah, I totally think, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to speed it up. They're trying to make it more exciting. And I think these changes that they like I said, they've tested these in the minor leagues and they work. So I think that's what they're trying to do: speed the game up, make it more intriguing, especially for the younger generation. We got to make sure your kids and my kids are invested in this game, and it's a product that they want to watch.
Now, when you talk about the pitch clock, okay, I mean, if you want to go ahead and do it for us here on camera right now, your whole routine in between pitches, for crying out loud. I mean, if Mike Hargrove is known as the human rain delay, then I don't know what the hell they're calling you, because I mean walk us through that whole routine. I always want to ask you, is that some OCD thing? I mean, I got OCD, and I get it. If you got to do this and you got to do that, I get all that stuff. I mean, come on.
Well, you know what? There was that whole routine. And I think if you told me I had to do it if I had 12 seconds, I could do it. I just would start doing it. I'd be stretching, doing everything I got to do. I'd do it in 12 seconds. You know what I mean? So I know the batting gloves thing started back when I was hitting those, every day in the cages. I hit so much, my batting gloves would get so wet. And my dad's like, we can only afford one pair of batting gloves. So I'm like, I got to just figure this out. So I didn't feel comfortable unless my gloves were super tight. So that was the first thing. Then I used to lift up my back leg to pop my hip, and I don't know, it just felt good when I did that. And then, just the shoulder roll stuff, and I was a mess up there. But I was really thinking, in my mind, I was doing all that, but I was thinking about, all right, like, what did he just throw me? 93 on a sink, all right. He just saw his curveball, right? I'm ready to go. I'm getting a deep breath, and here we go. So it was just a process that it made me feel comfortable. It made me feel like I was ready to go when I did it. But yeah, it was interesting.
Where did the nickname the Mayor come from?
A guy named Bill Mosiello, who's the head coach now at Ohio State, just got the job.
They introduced him on the field the other night, right?
Yeah, man, was my favorite coach. One of the best coaches I ever had. Ohio State is in good hands with Bill Mosiello. I promise you that. There's no doubt about it. But he was, me, Tom. I'm coming in. I'm talking to the concession ladies, and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm talking to the little kids. What's going on, man? And so Mosiello's like, man, I've never seen anything like it, bro. He's like, you're like the mayor, man. He's like, it looks like you're lobbying for votes. Every person you talk to, like you're lobbying for votes or something, And I was like, hey, man, you got to be nice to people, whatever. So he called me the mayor that whole summer. And I don't know how it got to the big leagues, but it somehow infiltrated. One night, Carl Ravitch on Baseball Tonight, I was watching in the hotel after a big game, and I doubled in the gap, and he was like, the mayor with a big double, or Sean Casey, they call him the mayor with a big double. And I'm like, oh my God, it's infiltrating the big league. So it initially started with Bill Mosiello in the Cape Cod League in 1994, and then all of a sudden it was in the big leagues, and that's how it kind of started. And I think another thing was just me talking to guys at first base and jibber jabbering and talking about the weather and their families and how you swinging it, what's your swing feel like, and all that stuff. So I think it just carried on, and it served me well the rest of my life, brother.
If there was ever one conversation over at first base with another player that you've never forgotten, for whatever reason, it could be something just completely ridiculous. It could be something where you kind of just raised your eyebrows and you were like, wow. Anything like that?
You know what? I think the one conversation, I've had a ton of conversations, but the one conversation I had with Mark McGwire, man, because I was so wide-eyed in '98. I was a rookie. It was Sosa, McGwire were going back and forth. McGwire was like a larger-than-life figure for anyone in sports. And, we were playing them daily. And I remember the first time we played them when I was up there, we intentionally walked them. And I remember thinking, oh, man, this is so great. I get a chance to talk to Mark McGwire. Because if I was hitting like 200 at the time, I was like, I'm about to get sent down. And at least I get a conversation with McGwire. I'll start to tell my kids one day. So I end up sneaking over, and as I'm sneaking over, Jack McKeon's in the dugout like, hey, Case, play behind him. I'm like, I don't want to play behind him. I want to talk to him. So I'm like 5 feet behind him, but I come up. I'm like, hey, what's up, Big Mac? And he turns to me. He's like, how you doing, Sean? I was like, yes. Guy knows my name. Let's go. It was incredible. So the next at bat, Tom, he ends up walking again, and I'm like, I'm not even going to look in the. I got to get this conversation in. I'm not even going to look in the dugout. I know they're going to try and tell me. So I walk up as quick as I can. Hey, what's up, Big Mac, man? Hey, you're having a great summer, man. Can't believe you got 45 home runs. It's unbelievable, and it's only July. He's like, oh, thanks, man. I was like, it's really cool. Your son's the bat boy too. I've been watching that and reading Sports Illustrated, and he's like, oh, thanks a lot, Sean. We're having this conversation, and I'm like, and I literally just fell into the moment. Like, I forgot I was in the big leagues. I forgot I was the first baseman for the Reds. I'm like, how the hell did I get on this field having a conversation with Mark McGwire in the summer of '98, And as we're talking, I guess Jack McKeon is going nuts behind me, and so's the whole dugout now. Because the game, I'm like, why the hell's the guy not pitching the ball? Well, they're not pitching because they're trying to get me to play behind McGwire. But I'm so immersed in this unbelievable conversation with him, So McGwire's like, hey man, he's like, I think they want to get your attention. So I turned to the dugout and I was like, what the hell? Play behind him. Wake up. We've been yelling at you for the last 3 minutes. And I was like, oh, my bad. But it was the first time I didn't care. I was like, there's the conversation. If I get sent out of here, I got a conversation with Mark McGwire. I'll be telling Tom Brenneman in 30 years, 20 years.
Yeah, I'm sure. hey, Sammy Sosa was in on that deal. And I mean, I always found him, and I don't care if people get wrapped up in, did he do this? Did he not do that? That's not for this time and place. But I always found him to be such a cool dude and always had a smile on his face. I always likened him the years I was there to almost a Latin American-born player who was like a Sean Casey. He loved to talk to people, he loved to smile, and he loved to be around people.
Yeah, Sammy was having a great time. You're right. And it was a party around Sammy. So it was a party at Wrigley. And then when Sammy was there, that place was going crazy for the years that he was hitting, 60 home runs, and what he was doing was absolutely amazing. But yeah, Sammy's personality was great for the game during that time, especially when in that chase at 98, having that smile and doing the whole thing, in the dugout after he'd hit homers and stuff. So, he was a great personality for the game.
I'm curious, Sean, do you feel like baseball at this point in time needs another Sosa McGwire kind of shot in the arm? Because right now, Aaron Judge just hit 56 and 57 last night for the New York Yankees. And now, look, we don't live in New York. We're right here in Cincinnati where the team's not very good, and there aren't a lot of people right now following baseball, and they're more interested in college football and the NFL. But nobody talks about Aaron Judge. I think everywhere they were talking about Sammy and McGwire back in those days. Does baseball need something like that to happen?
I think so. I think also another thing that's happening is Shohei Ohtani's happening too. Like, we've never seen a guy do what he's doing with, 34, he's third in the league in home runs, and he's going to be top 5 in the Cy Young race. But I think that Aaron Judge is special because, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, the home run record is still connected to 3 guys with PEDs and McGwire, Sosa, and Bonds. And, having that number 61, 62 was always like the big number. And I think having Judge doing it this summer in a Yankee uniform, he's 20 home runs ahead of the next guy in the league. So, it's really been a historic year for him. The Yankees aren't where they're at without him. But I think that chase for 61, 62 is becoming, exciting again for fans in baseball. And I do think anything like this that happens in the game is really good for the game of baseball.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about. Both of your sons have had a chance to be really good baseball players, and they continued playing baseball out of after high school and so forth. And look, baseball is littered with guys who had sons that were really good players, whether they were major league players or just good amateur players, whatever the case might be. When you were sitting there as a dad, when you got to watch them and watch them both in high school and in college, did you feel pressure for them because their dad was Sean Casey? Did they feel pressure because their dad was Sean Casey?
You know what? Is there a certain pressure? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is, but I didn't raise them that way. I didn't raise my kids like you got to play baseball, or whatever. I think they both ended up playing college baseball because they were around it a lot. They put the work in. They worked really hard at it. That was a lot of the things that I would say is repetition's the mother of skill. You're not going to get good in something unless you put the work in, and they both did. So I think for me, and do they get the Sean Casey stuff? And I'm like, yeah. But I said at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. I'm a great father. I love you guys to death. Yeah, I want you guys to do whatever you want to do in life, but I want you to do it well, and I want you to work hard at it. I want you to put the time in, and I want you to develop skills. So, at the end of the day, it's their life. It's not my life. My life was my life. My story is my story. And, I think that's one thing that's so unique is, our kids are their own unique beings, and I'm just very proud of them as the men they're becoming more than anything.
Well, Case, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know you got to get to work. I mean, you've got that fancy green room behind you. It almost looks like there's a bed in there. I don't know if you slept back. I don't know if those are sheets or what the hell that is back there.
I got a dishwasher. I just did the dishes. I got mayhem here, okay?
You got you're a big league operator. You got a kitchen and a full fridge, stacked up fridge in a hotel room. That's when you know you're really a big leaguer, not doubling off Randy Johnson.
I'm at the Residence Inn. I'm not like, Frank, what do you think? I'm at like some nice high rise. I'm at the Residence Inn in Secaucus, New Jersey right now.
Well, you're not used to Residence Inns, I can tell you that. Although I think they're nice places. All right, brother. Thanks for your time today, Case. God bless you, man. Great having you. Thanks so much for your time.
Tommy, so good to see you, my man. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person at some point. And tell your pops I said hi.
The old curmudgeon.
Hi, old curmudgeon.
Sean Casey, kind enough to join us. Thank you so much, Sean. And, boy, I mean, the guy's the best. I mean, what else are you going to say? I've never met an athlete. I'm not sure I've ever met a person, and I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. I don't know if I've ever met a person like that guy. He's in a good mood all the time. He treats people he's the best. We are back with more on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers in a moment.